Hello, exiles. Today we're going to talk about something a bit more speculative because, quite honestly, tis the season for figuring out how to make this game better than it is, which it's very good, but let's be honest, it's got its pain points. That is to say, early access is early access. There's three things that I want to talk about right now. One that I think is pretty universally agreed upon, and two that I find kind of are unfinished or maybe missed opportunities. And done a little better, they could address things that are kind of a pain point for people in the game right now. Things that are making the game less enjoyable for a very large number of players, especially people coming from Path of Exile 1. So, the first and possibly most obvious one here is ascending. When you ascend, you start with going to Sanctum. You get your first genie coin from fighting, I think it's Balbala? Is that how you say it? And you get a quest item, and I'm going through this for a reason. I'm not just rehashing to pad out time. You get a quest item that lets you go to the trial of the Sekma, and you run Sanctum basically. And this first token is important because it's a quest item. It's not like these, which you find randomly, and you kind of do for a challenge run that gives you rewards. These ones over here specifically are 3 trial Sekma runs and 7 trial ultimatums. The reason why I'm bringing up ascendancy isn't because I think the way they've done it is necessarily bad. It's because the way they've currently done it is both too difficult and too stressful. And this is something that's very easy to fix. It's almost depressing how easy it is to fix, because I just talked about how initially you get a quest item that's repeatable. And one of the biggest issues with ascendancy right now is you can't repeat it if you fail when you're on to, say, this one here, right? The 3 trials. And I've got a few here that I stockpiled while doing the campaign. I really took my time at the end once I knew these could drop, because I want to get to a high level and make it as easy as possible when I go back at a lower level. And that's another one of the problems with these, is that if I weren't doing this, if I were just playing, I'd get more of these, but they would match my level. And I would never be able to find a way to do it in a way that would improve my odds of success for getting ascendancy points. And ascendancy points are a major part of our power gain in this game. Locking that out is not good. Grinding gear games really needs to be more cognizant of how this is affecting players and how they feel. But even more than that, it's just the general sense that I have to guard this as a resource, and this is looming over my head, right? I'll probably get to level 80 before I run this, and it's area level 60. I need to make it as easy as possible, because there are things wildly outside of my control through the mechanics that could potentially brick the run if I make a mistake. And that kind of comes to the greater problems with the current ascendancy system, is that I don't know what the third boss is. I've actually done a 2 trial Sanctum already, because I thought doing a 2 trial one would get me my third ascendancy. It doesn't. You need to do a 3 trial one. Fine, whatever. Fighting the second boss was not a fun experience, even though the boss fight itself was fun, and I thought it was hectic and crazy, but I got through it. Fighting the boss itself was fun, but getting there and having it all on the line when I had no idea what it was going to be, that's not a good experience. That just it leaves you with a sense of anxiety. And when you get through it, for some people that's going to be really gratifying and enjoyable, and there is something gratifying and enjoyable about it. But the fact that you have to get there with all this risk behind it, knowing that failure is going to hurt you in a more significant way than deaths elsewhere in the game, is not a good place to be for something that you feel you have to do. Does that make sense? That said, I think all of this is actually incredibly easy to fix. We're going to need a third quest drop, maybe one that could be used in either or. I don't know, for the final one. And then I think for all 3, they should go in, because I didn't mention this before, but when I did my inscribed ultimatum, the first quest one, it took me a long time, and I was overleveled, and it was still a problem, because I just kept getting combinations of modifiers from the mechanic that were really bad for me and made the final fight difficult, or created openings for the boss to instantly kill me, which is what happened. I just got unlucky. I don't know what else to say. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, the thing that put a tether on me, I rolled out, got stunned, and the moment I got stunned, the boss did a leap and killed me instantly. I'm just... There goes the run. I had to do it again. I was 8 levels over the zone, and it hit me that hard because the snapping the tether causes you to take increased damage. That doesn't feel good. It just pissed me off. I didn't really feel like I made a mistake because he had done that attack not that long ago, and I thought, okay, he's not going to do it again for a little while. And I could have stayed, I guess, in the tether, but for how long, right? I can't stay there forever. I'm pretty sure it does damage to me at the time. That's not really the point, though. The point being, I want the first one, right? The first Sanctum that's quest, the first Ultimatum that's quest, and then a new quest version for either or to get your third ascendancy. I want all of those, and I think a lot of people would appreciate this to nix the primary mechanic and also the reward system. So you go through it, but there's no chests at the end. There's no extra rewards, except for, you know, what you would get for killing rare mobs in the boss, because you are killing unique boss who drops loot at the end. And the reason why I think this is like a really, really good idea is because honor is a very punishing mechanic. The ultimatum choose your penalty is a very punishing mechanic. Knowing the fights, the room challenges, just like the general how to get through it, and then also the bosses, being able to learn those without those mechanics will make the actual rewarding version of this of the trial and the ultimatum much more fun for people because they'll have a chance to learn them. They could even leave it open, right? You turn in the quest item, and now that's just an option. You can run that as like a test to learn the mechanic. And that's something Sanctum and Path of Exile 1 lacked. And I think that's like the core of what Path of Exile 2 needs right now is an opportunity for people to do things and learn them. That's it. People need to be able to learn them. People on hardcore need to be able to bail and not feel punished for that. Because damn, man, hardcore players have it pretty rough right now. So that's the big one. I got a little long-winded in there, but I was really passionate about that one because I think the change I propose would pretty much fix it for everyone. I think if you had that, people would be way less stressed out, and it would even make the mechanics themselves better. Like going to run them later, you would feel more comfortable doing them after having an idea of what to expect, and now it was a challenge version of something that you had already completed instead of just immediately being a challenge run that slapped the snot out of you for things you didn't know yet, which is just never a good way for a player to feel, is that they lost because they didn't understand something that should have been readily presented to them. Moving on to some of the, I would say, less intuitive things that I think the game needs some changes to. We're going to runes. Runes are the new crafting bench. If you didn't really know that, they basically replace being able to stick targeted mods onto your equipment. Some of them are good. Some of them are not so good. Most of them are pretty decent, though. Some runes are weighted in such a way where they're maybe too powerful early and then laughably bad later. 10 mana per enemy killed is not very good. That's gonna fall off real hard. 20 maximum mana total, also very bad. At what is it? At 1,000. Well, hold on. I did the math on this for life because I think the life one is also very bad. At 1,000 life, this is 1.25% increased maximum life, assuming you don't have, you know, percent increases anywhere. That's very small. Already by 1,000 life, this rune is kind of always going to be worse than the iron rune, which will actually make an item with good values much better, because armor, evasion, energy shield are going to scale much better off of that value once you hit a certain point. On that note, the only runes that have a flat value should probably be resistance ones, because you kind of have a very flat requirement for them, and accuracy, which is similar. And, you know, I mean, 100 accuracy isn't great for a martial weapon, but it's fine. I wish it were a little better. I don't know how you would do a percentage gain, though. I'm not sure percentage would be better, because sometimes what you need is a little bit of flat. I think this number is actually all right. It's basically what I'm saying. The other big issue with runes is that, by GGG's own admittance, the permanence of crafting comes from the Val Orb, right? Once you Val an item, that item is done. It is the last step of crafting. You cannot make any further changes. Except runes. For whatever reason, these sockets are locked in, and it's strange to me that they would make this choice, but more than that, I think it's just stupid. It's just generally stupid. I get that the rune itself should not be refundable, but give me a new crafting bench to sit down at and destroy my glacial rune so I can put something else in there if I need to. All right, I'm losing the rune when I do that. It's not like we're introducing more runes into the economy. If anything, we're going to be using more of them because we can do that with items and make changes when we need to. It's very odd to me that this is a decision they've made, especially when they offer like better alternatives to runes through ultimatum. Because what am I supposed to do now when I get a really nice piece of equipment? Am I supposed to put runes in it and then have to get better equipment later when I have the better stuff from ultimatum? Or do I just leave it without stats until I get the one I need from ultimatum? That doesn't make sense to me. I think it's a really poorly executed system in that regards. Maybe the runes not being destroyable to free up the slot was a decision they made before they added the stuff from ultimatum. But now that the stuff from ultimatum is in, and there's like very clearly 2 tiers of runes for your equipment, this is to me a very, very bad choice that it works this way. I think this is a tremendous mistake. It needs to be switched also because it kind of replaces the crafting bench, which again, those mods are supposed to be variable. So I really don't understand their choice in that matter. Maybe I really hope it's not a technical limitation because everything about Path of Exile 2 is that we don't have those anymore. Remember, this is supposed to fix all that. So obviously the whole thing about runes not being removable and destroyed so that you can use the item again with a new rune in its socket or whatever they're called. What is the right, or a soul core as an alternative. 7 Casperas. I need to make use of that at some point. That's kind of an obvious. For the other ones, my instinct is change the life and mana ones to 2% life and 2% mana. There are soul cores that already do this, but honestly, just bump them up to 3%. That's not going to break balance. It's still going to make them significantly more valuable. And currently, 2% isn't that much, but it is a desirable stat because it's harder to get. It's enough for someone to be like, okay, do I want more armor, evasion, energy shield, or do I need a little bit more raw life or mana? And that's a decision people will make instead of just, well, I'm level 40 now, I'm never going to use body rune again for my armor. That doesn't make much sense to me, and I don't think it makes much sense to most people. In the same vein, 20% increased physical damage is really fantastic on a weapon. A little bit of flat added lightning damage isn't, because it doesn't have that same scaling factor. This could very easily be like a very small token percent more lightning damage, more lightning weapon damage, right? So like 2%. And then you put 2 in there and it's 4%. 4% more damage on your, or 4% more lightning weapon damage is good enough for someone who's using a pure elemental weapon to be like, yeah, I want this. Another 2 to 40 lightning damage becomes less attractive the longer you play the game for. That's just how it is. And there's really no way around it. And honestly, maybe 2% is even too low. It might need to be more than that, honestly. But I just don't like the lacking nature of how these scale, because you are almost universally going to reach a point where you don't want to use these ever. You're going to pick something else that has a more impactful effect, and that's not a great feeling. These shouldn't just like become trash at some point, right? Runes should have a purpose, in my opinion, I guess. So, this is my belt. I like it. It's not very good, but I haven't found a new one yet, and it's hard to get new items in this game. The problem is it only has 1 charm slot, and the way to get more charm slot is to roll modifiers on your belt. That rubs me the wrong way in all sorts of ways. Just why are we locking charm slots behind modifiers you roll on an item that is being competed for by other modifiers on the item? That's strange, right? I'm not alone in feeling that way. Why is the item working that way? These are supposed to replace utility flasks. You're supposed to get a certain amount of utility out of them, but that's not what happens. And honestly, I feel this way doubly because as good as some of the charms are, good examples being, say, the ones that give you bleeding immunity when you need it, poison immunity when you need it, help you deal with stuns and freeze. Those are really fantastic. The ones that give you resistance are fine, but not nearly as important. And this one here that helps me with slows is really great. This helps me keep from getting surrounded when enemies are doing funny things. The problem is, again, like I guess I could just, I mean, that's a good stat. It's not charm slots. damn, I guess I don't have charm slots unless I want to throw chaos orbs at it and risk breaking the belt. It's just not a great system. I would much prefer that this was something we just had to invest in naturally, like a new crafting bench that, while letting us destroy runes, would also let us add charm slots to our belt for, I don't know, artificer's orbs. And it could be a lot of orbs too. It doesn't need to be cheap. It's just that this feels like something that should progressively unlock, not something that should be locked behind the item. Because these charms are going to be necessary for some characters more than others. The other thing is charms themselves are always reactive, and I that seems like a colossally missed opportunity, because if you really think about it, there's a lot they could be doing with these that would be very helpful. For instance, what about charms that do stuff when you're rolling as a passive effect? Like probably not phasing, because they feel that's a little powerful, although it could certainly be on the list. Maybe a unique charm for that has like a downside to go with it. But something that would give me increased armor, evasion, energy shield, one or the other. Because this is an active dodge, right? Having it also shield me a little bit in case I roll at the right time but I don't get away could be very nice for a lot of players. It doesn't need to be a massive value, but a decent enough value to make it competitive with the other charms. That'd go over really well. And honestly, the charm I want the most, the charm I think most players would want the most, would be called a Quicksilver charm. And you can probably see where I'm going with this if you played Path of Exile 1. Because it would be great for a lot of people, myself especially. Actually, I'd say old Zoomers in Path of Exile 1 especially, because you probably care about this way more than I do. But a Quicksilver charm that says if there's no enemies within a certain radius, you move 20% faster, or even just 10% faster, would be so great for the situations in the game where you're running around and there's just nothing there. And it's nice to look at, and all the animations are beautiful, but let's be honest, it's time consuming, right? Games should respect our time inherently. Like, getting this hideout was great because I can move all of my stuff together with my disenchanter, and look at all the time I'm saving right next to my map device. Yeah, I just the charm system, and it's so easy to fix too, right? The thing is, from GGG's perspective, this might actually be a major upsetter of balance. But I also think a lot of people agree that the way the game currently works right now is a little too punishing, and this would help alleviate that in one of those small ways. And they like to fix big problems with lots of small solutions, and not just one heavy blow that completely knocks it out. And I think this would be a big part of it. But also, I just really feel like the current system where you have to roll a mod on the belt to get additional charm slots is stupid. That is pants on head. Can't say that word on YouTube. This was a very long-winded video. I'm gonna even call it indulgent. But if you enjoyed it, if you agreed, give it a like, I guess. I'm almost gonna say this video is like GGG feedback in video form. Maybe someone there will see it, or maybe people will agree with some of the ideas and talk about them, and we can get them to hear these things, because this game's very close to being fantastic. Like, it's very close to being fantastic, but little things like the way ascendancy works leave a bad taste in my mouth, and like build a sense of dread. It's like, oh, there's a new league coming out for Poe 2. And then I think about ascending and I'm like, well, that part's gonna suck. Right? There's no sense of joy for that. In Path of Exile 1, ascending really was not like that. You could just keep retrying. The only exception being the Eternal Labyrinth, but even that wasn't so bad. And that was the fourth one, right? I don't even know if Path of Exile 2 has a fourth ascendancy. I hope it does, if I'm being honest. I would love to have 4 ascendancy points. Anyway, I'm going to get back to mapping, enjoy my hideout, which I unlocked from mapping. I haven't done much yet. I've just I did like a few because I didn't want to start streaming and get absolutely bodied and be like, well, that was embarrassing. So yeah, I dipped my toe in before I made it public. I hope that doesn't offend anyone. What is that? Okay. Anyway, thanks for watching, Exiles.